Hi, Chef Luke Peters, Hy-Vee. I'm here today to kind of talk about some of our local produce that we've got in our Hy-Vee stores. All of them should have some different kinds and just a lot of different producers that each of the stores are working with, and it just kind of depends on what they choose to order. But there's a lot of great local products that you can get just right around. I mean, some of the same stuff that you'd see at your local farmers markets that are ending up in the Hy-Vee stores now. So we've got a dish today that I'm preparing for you that will have some of the nice fresh Iowa produce, and it's if you ever heard of the movie, it's Ratatouille. This is a very popular side dish, and it's very easy to cook. It just takes a couple of minutes. The thing is actually trying to keep the freshness and all the vitality of these vegetables that you get. I mean, you're getting a fresh local product, why not keep it with all that fresh flavor? So I'll show you how to kind of go through cutting this down to where you want it, and then we'll kind of work with showing you how to cook it, which really only takes a couple minutes. As some of you have been in to see some of my demos in the store, I've done this as a side dish with some of the Alaskan salmon that we had. It's a really nice fresh side dish for a really nice fresh fish. Okay, so we have some of our different kinds of produce that we get locally here. We've got some of these really nice little cherry tomatoes. These things are just really tasty little bites. It goes really good in this dish that we'll just kind of mash these a little bit. There's not really anything special to that. We'll just kind of cut them in half, mash them. Then we've got some zucchini. We've got some yellow squash, a little cucumber. Gives it some different colors and flavors. And then we've got some of our nice Iowa grown tomatoes here. And we've got some peppers over here that the farm that we work with actually does produce them, but these aren't those specific ones. We just didn't have any in. But we do get all of these items locally. So these will all be the ingredients that I go into. Now I just need to kind of show you how we make the cuts on these kinds of products. All right, each one of these is kind of be the same cut. You're looking for the same basic shape and size. So we'll just start off with the zucchini because it's pretty firm and it's kind of easy to show you how to do this. So we'll cut off both the ends, and then what I find is you kind of want to get to a square type shape. So you can kind of take one of the edges off like that so that you can set it flat. That gives you a base to work with, and then you kind of do the same thing to the other sides. And so then we're kind of looking to, you kind of want to shore up the sides to make sure it's nice and even. So what we're trying to do is kind of get a flat plank that's going to be kind of even. So we'll just carefully look down and kind of keep it the same width all the way across. And you can kind of adjust this how thick or as thin as you want. So we'll get a couple of these planks to work with. Now, what we're doing is, now that we have kind of an even plank like this, then we'll cut long strips. And this works for most kinds of produce. If you want to get like an exact size or a shape, you could adjust any one of these steps to where if you wanted a really, really small one, you'd do a very, very thin plank, and then you'll continue on with this same kind of method. And then we'll make these long, they call them batons. And we'll kind of get the edge right off there so they're all kind of even. So now we're kind of left with, we've got pretty much all similar shape. Now these don't have to be perfect. You're not really being inspected on home on exactly, you know, whether this is going to be like a quarter of an inch by a quarter of an inch by a quarter of an inch. You're the only judge of that, so however you would like to do it. But this kind of gives you the idea of how it works. Now we've got these batons, and just kind of hold them like this, and then this makes little tiny cubes, and this will give you kind of the size and shape that we want. So it's something a little bit smaller, and just kind of chop these all the way up. Now this will work for all produce on some level. Just kind of depends on what you're working with. And all these vegetables we picked will work just fine for this. So we can take all these and put them in a what we call a mise en place bowl, which just means everything in its place. So you're kind of organizing your ingredients as you go. And then you take this, and we're just cutting slices like this. So it's kind of just starting it right off. Now again, you need to have a sharp knife right here. This can be dangerous on the outside of tomatoes, and because you're cutting on the skin on the outside. But you can take the tops off, you don't necessarily need those. And then you've kind of, how we just cut the other one, you're doing the same kind of thing. You're cutting big strips, all about the same size, turning them, and then just cutting cubes. Let me show you the peppers, and this will kind of show you how we do a pepper all the way. Now, you can kind of just take it, get this out of the way, take the pepper once in half. Now, you can do this with your hand, but it's a little bit quicker with a knife. And you just kind of take the knife, cut the ribs, and then you're actually going to cut right up like that and remove the top part. And then you're going to do the same thing with the bottom. Now you can, if you want to, not waste anything, you can cut this up into small dice however you'd like. But for this cut, we can just kind of take this, and you're getting the ribs, and then kind of anything on the edges right like this. Get that kind of cut out. Get those kind of trimmed down. Now, what we're doing with this is going to be the same kind of thing. We want to make long strips and then cut those into small cubes. But you can cut this just in the strips like this. Now, if you can do this a little bit differently and trim this down all the way down so it's flat, and then you can push it down and then cut longer ribbons on it. But that's not really necessary at home. You can just kind of get what you're looking for and get some of these cut up. Alright. So then again, we'll take the strips that we've cut and then kind of organize those together. And then we're just cutting them down into dices like this so that we all have around similar shape and size. With these cherry tomatoes, all you're really looking for this is we're going to get some of the tomato content out of the middle. This will give you almost like a little light sauce at the bottom. So I just like to cut this in half once and then just smush it. And just give it a little smush. And because you want them to be soft, and it'll be a little bit easier to release some of their flavor and juices down at the bottom. So we'll cut up a few of those and get this all these. That's the only real time that this recipe takes, is preparing all the vegetables beforehand. So we'll get these cut up and then we will start cooking the dish. Alright, so we've got a pretty good medium-high to high heat onto our oil. So you're going to see a little bit of smoke coming off of this. So we're going to want to be fast when we put this in there, but it needs to start off with a high heat because we want to cook this very quickly, and so that we're not like overcooking these vegetables. So, but you just kind of want to watch it that you don't brown your garlic too much when you toss it in here. So we'll put this in, and we'll throw the mashed up tomatoes right after it. We kind of want to get this tossing around so it doesn't stay for very long right onto there. And then we can start adding actually some of the other diced tomatoes. Want a little bit of liquid content in this so that it doesn't keep that heat too high. Now we can actually add each one of our ingredients as we go. We've got some green bell peppers, some yellow bell peppers, and of course some red bell peppers. Gives a lot of color to this dish. And just kind of toss them around a little bit. And then add in our zucchini. So that way it's giving it almost kind of a white with a little bit of green. And then a little more yellow with some of our yellow squash. And then a little cucumber, kind of give it that fresh flavor. Okay, so again, we'll just kind of toss this around a little bit and crank the heat way back up. Now you're literally looking at a cook time of maybe 3 minutes. You're just going to kind of soften this and get its flavor kind of mixed around because you want just the natural flavors of the vegetables. These are all very, very good tasting vegetables, and being local, you know, it's kind of nice that you don't have to worry about anything crazy into it. You know exactly where you've gotten it from, and it's kind of it's a good relationship that we can have with our local community. It's why at the restaurant I used to work with, we got up to about 70% local product. It's really being community minded, and the stuff just tastes good. I mean, you can always count on it. When you see some of the stuff that, like, I saw a farmer's market the other day that had cantaloupes that were as big as a basketball. I mean, you get some stuff that you just don't normally see. So, get these just kind of softened, and now we are pretty much done with this, because it'll rest for just a minute, and even then it'll continue to kind of soften this a little bit. So we'll finish it off with a little bit of cracked black pepper and my favorite, a little kosher salt. Make sure this just gets stirred around. Now this is going to have a lot of different texture and flavor, so this is a great local produce side dish that we can serve with anything. I know at my demos, like I said, I was serving this with a little bit of our fresh Alaskan salmon. So, but you could also just take some linguine and some olive oil and a little more salt and pepper and just toss this on there. It makes it even kind of a nice little vegetarian pasta. And I mean, by all means, I mean, this doesn't need to be just vegetarian. You can throw some nice seared beef with it. You can do any number of things. It's a really great side dish. So, now it's nice and soft. We have our fresh, local ratatouille. Nice and colorful. Bon appetit.